What if the future of an entire continent is being built right now, in a place the world barely notices? While the West is caught in political drama, economic breakdowns, and a steady loss of global influence, something bold and unexpected is unfolding in West Africa. And at the heart of it all is a country most people have overlooked: Burkina Faso. Yeah, you heard that right. That small, often forgotten nation is stepping into the spotlight with a vision that could shift the course of Africa's future. While former colonial powers look on with nervous curiosity, a new chapter is being written, and it's not following the old script. Leading this movement is President Ibrahim Traoré, a man who isn't just speaking about change, he's making it real. Literally. Burkina Faso is in the process of building a brand new city. But this isn't just another urban development. It's more than bricks, roads, and infrastructure. This is a statement, a warning, a declaration. It says, we're done waiting. We're done begging. We don't need your money and we don't need your permission. We're building our future, our way. And here's the part that's shaking old empires. They're doing it without Western aid. No loans from the IMF, no backroom deals with ex-colonizers, no strings attached. Just African leadership, African vision, and African purpose. For decades, global powers have treated Africa like a treasure chest. They've taken the gold, the oil, and the resources, all while pretending to offer help. But the truth? It was never about partnership. It was always about profit. And let's be honest, the West hasn't even tried to hide its condescension. Remember when George W. Bush called Africa a country? Or when Trump, well, we all remember what he said. But now, Africa's pushing back, and Burkina Faso is at the front of that charge. The city they're building, often called the Renaissance City, is more than a dream. It's a bold symbol of self-reliance and resistance, a message to the world that Africa is no longer interested in playing by someone else's rules. While the West struggles under its own weight, political chaos, social division, and economic decay, Africa is rising with intention. This isn't just a new development, this could be the start of a new era. And if you haven't been paying attention, now's the time to tune in. Because what's happening in Burkina Faso could change everything. But to really understand the weight of this moment, you have to understand what it took to get here. This isn't just about building a city. It's about breaking chains. Chains that have held the continent down for centuries. From the brutal days of colonialism to the slick grip of neocolonialism, Africa has been drained of its wealth, carved up, and forced into dependency. The land was stolen. The systems were rigged. The people were told they couldn't succeed without outside help. But here's the plot twist no one expected. The old world is cracking. Europe is staggering through one crisis after another. The UK barely survived Brexit. The US is locked in non-stop political chaos. The so-called stability of the West. It's falling apart. And while they unravel, Africa is waking up. Burkina Faso's President Traoré isn't waiting for approval. He's not begging for loans. He's building, literally, a new path forward. The Renaissance City is more than construction. It's a bold message. Africa is done playing catch-up. The West's old game of exploit, extract, and control, it's not working anymore. African nations are exposing those tactics, and for the first time in a long time, they're pushing back, hard. This isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's about a shift in power. A moment when Africa looks at the world and says, we're writing our own story now. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable for the old powers. This rise? It doesn't need them. No deals, no strings, no saviors. Just Africans deciding their own fate. The West, once the unstoppable force, is suddenly on defense. The era of one-sided power is coming to an end, and a new chapter is unfolding, not just for Burkina Faso, but for all of Africa. But if Africa is finally rising, why does that make the West so uneasy? What is it about this quiet revolution that feels like such a threat to the old guard? Before we unpack that, take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. If you care about Black history, real stories, and the powerful truth behind Africa's rise, you're in the right place. Now let's dive even deeper, because the Renaissance city is just the beginning. And what comes next might just rewrite everything. For decades, the West claimed it wanted to help Africa develop. It promised progress, investment, and support. But here's the million-dollar question. Now that Africa is finally building itself up, on its own terms, why does the West seem so uncomfortable? Simple. It was never really about helping. The West's grip on global influence has always relied on Africa staying weak, divided, and dependent. But that era is ending. Fast. While Western nations spiral into recession, political chaos, and social disarray, Africa is rising. Not on borrowed time or borrowed money, but through its own power, vision, and leadership. And right at the center of this shift is something bold: Burkina Faso's Renaissance City project. Now, this isn't just a construction plan. It's a statement, a symbol, a line in the sand. For too long, the dominant narrative was, Africa can't survive without us. But President Ibrahim Traoré and leaders like him are proving otherwise. Africa isn't just surviving, it's leading. This new city represents so much more than urban growth. It stands for independence, pride, and a future driven by African priorities, not foreign agendas. And the promise of 50,000 homes? That's not just a number. That's hope. That's dignity being rebuilt from the ground up. It's the start of a much bigger movement, one where African nations aren't waiting to be saved. They're saving themselves. Meanwhile, the West? Once powerful economies like the US are drowning in debt, struggling with inflation, and facing political systems that more and more people no longer trust. Europe? Cracking at the seams. Its union is fragile, its politics divided, its future uncertain. And here's the twist. The more Africa rises, the more the cracks in the West's foundation are exposed. Because the truth is, they never expected to lose control. But that's exactly what's happening. This moment isn't just about a city or even a single country. It's about power. Real, long-term power, shifting into the hands of people who were told for generations they'd never hold it. And this is just the beginning. While the West scrambles to hold itself together, something incredible is happening on the continent it once tried to define. Africa, led by bold thinkers like Traoré, isn't just surviving the global system, it's rewriting it. And the Renaissance City is at the heart of that rewrite. This isn't just a city, it's a rejection of the old playbook, the one that kept Africa in cycles of debt, dependence, and foreign control. Traoré's message is clear. Africa doesn't need saving, it needs space to build. Think about it. How many times did the West roll in with development projects backed by the World Bank or IMF? Housing and infrastructure deals that looked like help on the surface, but were really debt traps dressed up as aid. Behind every loan was a contract. And behind every contract, a quiet hand keeping control. But that model? It's breaking. And Burkina Faso is breaking it with force. The 50,000 homes in Renaissance City? They're being built by local workers using local materials, funded by African capital. No foreign lenders. No billion-dollar interest bills. No fine print. This is Africa investing in Africa. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. It's not just about construction. It's about sovereignty. It's a message to the world. We don't need middlemen. We don't need permission. We've got this. And here's the part that stings for the West. They can't control it. Historically, housing projects in Africa came with strings. Loans disguised as generosity. Partnerships that gave foreign investors more power than the very people living in the homes. What looked like progress often left countries buried in debt, stripped of decision-making power, and forced into dependency. Not this time. The Renaissance city flips that entire model on its head. It's not just about roads and buildings, it's about taking back what was always ours. The right to lead, to decide, to own our future. A movement built by Africans for Africans. No gatekeepers, no overseers. And while Western economies teeter and their influence fades, Africa is stepping confidently into its next chapter. This time, Africa's not asking, it's leading. This isn't just another construction project. This is a bold new era. A clean break from the old rules that chained African nations to outside approval. Burkina Faso is flipping the script. No more chasing Western validation. No more waiting for foreign investors to believe in the vision. This is about building wealth that stays home. Prosperity that flows into local communities, not into offshore accounts. It's about writing our own story, for once, and telling it loud enough that the world has no choice but to listen. But let's be honest, the West isn't ready for this. Many Americans and Europeans still view Africa through an outdated colonial lens. One where the continent is seen as a place of crisis, corruption, and charity. That image is baked into the media, education, and even foreign policy. So when something like Renaissance City starts rising from the red soil of Burkina Faso, don't be surprised when Western media shrugs it off or downplays it. Because deep down, the idea of an Africa that doesn't need the West anymore, that terrifies them. And it should. The global balance of power is shifting. The dominance the West once held over finance, diplomacy, and development is slipping. For centuries, that dominance was built on keeping others dependent. But now, that control is crumbling. Africa is no longer the continent waiting at the back of the line. It's moving to the front, with clarity, with confidence, and with no apologies. This is bigger than a city. It's a quiet revolution. And make no mistake, this is just the beginning. Africa is rising, and this time, it's on its own terms. Burkina Faso's Renaissance City is more than just a national initiative. It's the spark of a continental awakening, a symbol that Africa no longer needs to follow a script written by others. This city isn't just a cluster of buildings. It's a message, a bold declaration of independence. And that's exactly what makes the West nervous. The fear that others will be inspired to follow. The age of dependency is fading. A self-driven, people-centered Africa is no longer just a dream. It's already taking shape. The myth of Western dominance is crumbling, while Africa is stepping confidently into the future. As the West buckles under its own weight, crushed by debt and overconsumption, something powerful is unfolding across African soil. Nations like Burkina Faso aren't waiting for aid, validation, or permission. They're building futures with their own hands, on their own terms. At the heart of this new era stands Renaissance City, President Ibrahim Traoré's vision for a bold, self-sufficient Africa. But don't mistake it for just another construction project. It's a statement, a shift, a turning point where Africa stops reacting to the world and starts reshaping it. And that's what rattles the West. For decades, they dictated the narrative. They controlled the flow of money, the media, the resources, and in doing so, they controlled Africa's story. But now that grip is slipping. The tide is changing. Renaissance City marks the start of a broader transformation, one that challenges the very definition of power in the 21st century. This time, when Africa takes its place at the global table, it's not arriving as a junior partner, It's showing up to lead. The Western press will try to minimize it. They'll call it a dream, an experiment. But beneath that skepticism is fear, because if this works, it proves Africa doesn't need their systems anymore. And make no mistake, it is working. As Renaissance City climbs higher, it sends a powerful signal to the rest of the continent. You can build your own path. You don't need outside approval to thrive. You can rise, sovereign and strong. Let's talk real impact. This isn't just about new homes or cityscapes. It's about generating jobs, fostering skills, igniting innovation, and fueling a local economy that puts its people first, not foreign corporations looking to profit and vanish. Traoré's vision is rooted in dignity, sustainability, and pride. Renaissance City is Africa saying loud and clear, "We've got this." And finally, the world has no choice but to listen. This is a seismic shift, funded by African capital, built by African labor, and designed to serve African people. Renaissance City isn't just development. It's a symbol of economic liberation. And yes, it's shaking the West. For too long, African nations have been trapped in cycles of borrowing from the IMF and World Bank, caught in debt traps disguised as help. Those weren't loans. They were leashes, but that playbook is being thrown out. President Traoré isn't asking, he's building. Because true growth doesn't come from charity. It comes from courage, from vision, from within. By tapping into local resources, employing its own citizens, and reinvesting profits at home, Burkina Faso is rewriting the rules. The wealth stays here. The benefits stay local. The future belongs to the people, not to distant shareholders. Compare that with the Western model. Corporations arrive, extract what they can, then leave behind broken economies and empty promises. That cycle ends now. And here's the part the West can't handle. They can't win against this new model. It flips the script they've relied on for generations. Extraction, domination, control. A system designed to thrive by keeping others dependent. But Africa is flipping the tables. Renaissance City is just the start. It's a template for independence, and the continent is watching. Nation after nation is realizing there's another path forward, one that doesn't require bowing to foreign lenders or asking for handouts. Meanwhile, the West is cracking under its own weight. Mounting debt, collapsing industries, and a declining global influence are pulling apart the very system they once used to dominate. Africa, in contrast, is doubling down on itself. What's happening in Burkina Faso today is the start of something much bigger. This is about more than infrastructure. It's about empowerment, about building lives, economies, and legacies. This is about keeping Africa's wealth where it belongs, on African soil, in African hands. The message is clear. The future isn't being handed out. It's being built, and Africa's holding the blueprints. We all know how it goes. Every time Africa takes a bold step forward, the West is quick to poke holes. So before they even ask, let's talk about it. Is Renaissance City sustainable? That's the question they'll throw around, pretending to care. Meanwhile, they'll keep digging into African soil, pulling out resources with no concern for the environment or the people who live there. The West loves to talk about going green. They push their clean energy agendas and climate pledges like they're doing the world a favor. But behind the scenes, they keep profiting off Africa's raw materials, fueling their industries while telling Africans to slow down development. For the planet, of course. But President Traoré isn't falling for the hypocrisy. Renaissance City is being built with true sustainability in mind. Not because the West said so, but because it's what's right for Burkina Faso and its people. This isn't some PR stunt. Traoré is putting action behind the words. Eco-friendly construction, renewable energy, reforestation, and a deep respect for the land that has always sustained African communities. It's sustainability by design, for Africans by Africans. And here's the truth the West won't say out loud. They're not upset because they think Africa's doing it wrong. They're upset because Africa's doing it without them. Renaissance City is breaking free from outdated energy systems and foreign dependence. While Western nations cling to their exploitative models and lecture about climate change, Africa is building a future that works for itself. The West's version of sustainability, smoke and mirrors, empty promises wrapped in diplomacy, while behind the curtain, they keep taking more than they give. But that playbook is old, and Africa's not playing along anymore. Traoré's vision is rewriting the rules. Renaissance City is proof Africa can lead in sustainability, innovation, and development, all on its own terms. And what does the future hold? Hope, power, ownership. Renaissance City is more than buildings and solar panels. It's a symbol of what's possible when Africa takes control of its own story. Meanwhile, the West is starting to feel the weight of its own greed. Their systems are cracking, their dominance fading. Africa is rising, and this time, the world can't look away. The message is clear. The future isn't waiting for approval. It's already being built in Burkina Faso. This isn't just about Burkina Faso, it's about something bigger. Much bigger. Renaissance City is the spark. But the fire it's lighting stretches across an entire continent. We're witnessing the beginning of a movement, a true African awakening, one where nations are no longer pawns in someone else's game, but standing up, claiming their power, and writing their own future. For far too long, Africa's story was told by others. But that's changing. Right now, we're entering a new era where African nations set the agenda, not follow it. As the West faces its decline, economically, politically, and morally, Africa is rising. And Renaissance City is just the first step. This project isn't just about buildings or roads. It's about sovereignty. It's about proving African countries can lead the most important conversations of our time: innovation, sustainability, and economic growth. No more waiting for handouts. No more dancing to someone else's tune. The spotlight is shifting. And the future, it's African. Of course, the road ahead won't be easy. Big visions take time, and bold leadership. So how long before Burkina Faso fully realizes this dream? That depends on a few key pieces falling into place: stronger infrastructure, consistent investment, political stability, and the ability to push back against outside pressure from forces that still want to pull the strings. Right now, Burkina Faso's economy is growing, though it's still catching up to some of its neighbors. The country's GDP has been climbing steadily, between 4% and 6% in recent years. Not explosive, but meaningful. And if that momentum continues and accelerates through projects like Renaissance City, there's serious potential for transformation. With the right focus on agriculture, education, industry, and technology, Burkina Faso could change its story dramatically over the next few decades. But full independence from foreign aid and the eradication of poverty and unemployment, that will take time, persistence, and unity. Still, here's the bottom line. The foundation is being laid. Burkina Faso is building more than a city, it's building a blueprint. And that blueprint is inspiring nations across the continent. Renaissance City is the first step towards something historic, something unstoppable. The age of Western dominance is fading. The age of African leadership has arrived. Looking ahead, a realistic guess is that Burkina Faso could reach true self-sufficiency within the next 30 to 50 years. If it keeps growing steadily and leaders like President Traoré stay committed to independent economic policies and sustainable development. By then, Burkina Faso could be a major force in Africa's economy. Bustling industries, a confident and empowered population, far less reliant on outside powers. Think about it. Western countries took centuries to get where they are today. But Africa, especially countries like Burkina Faso, has the chance to leapfrog that timeline. Thanks to modern technology, innovation, and a firm stance against exploitative foreign influence, the rise could happen much faster. Renaissance City is a bold first step, no doubt. But the bigger journey to full development, that'll take dedication, building industries, investing in education, fostering homegrown innovation, all from within. The West? They've had their era of exploitation, but that time is running out. Burkina Faso's Renaissance City is proof positive. Africa doesn't need the West's approval or aid. Africa is more than ready to build a future that's prosperous, independent, and sustainable. Meanwhile, the West is struggling, facing internal chaos, shaky economies, and leadership failures. The tide of African sovereignty is rising, and there's no stopping it. So here's the question. Do you believe the future belongs to Africa? What happens if this progress keeps rolling? Where do you see Burkina Faso in the next few years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to keep watching stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.